Okay, hello.
Hello!
And welcome to I'm That Witch! We're back from our hiatus!
I know.
Yay!
It's been a while since I've seen your face.
It has.
Well, I did see you in other contexts than this podcast, but...
It's been a while since we talked about some historical witches and, all the problems in our society.
Correct. So we do have a good one today, and I'm excited to speak about Isobel Gowdie.
I'm so excited. Do you mind really quick, if before we start, sorry, I probably should have warned you I was doing this, if I give a shout out to my grandma, because I found out my grandma listens to our podcast every episode.
Aww.
And she also thinks that we sound alike. She's like, sometimes I can't tell who's talking.
The two Maddies.
The two, exactly. Honestly, though. So, hi, Nan. I'm glad you're listening.
Sorry. Gotta give Nan a shout out.
I just remembered that, as we started, and I was like, oh, I should have said I was going to do that. Sorry.
Oh, that is so funny. No, I love that. We love that Nans are listening. We hope all the Nans are listening to us right now and enjoying our little podcast as we go through our history.
She curses like a sailor, so please don't feel like that means you have to hold back in any way. She's just not a regular Nan. She's cool Nan.
She's cool Nan. Okay.
All right, sorry. I'm so sorry I interrupted. Please continue.
No, we have to give shout-outs where they're due. But we're going to jump in to Isobel Gowdie.
Yes.
And Isobel Gowdie, just to give a summary, was a Scottish woman who confessed to participating in witchcraft in a small village in 1662. Someone's dyslexia is kicking in real hard right now. So a lot of the research that for this episode is based on a few resources, including Emma Wilby, who is someone who really tried to document the history of Isobel Gowdie. There's not a lot of articles or any kind of historical documents besides her confessions, which were heavily documented. So we're going to kind of talk about, the time in which she lived, and then kind of go into where her confessions came from, what we do know about her. So, not much is known of or available regarding Gowdie's life, but we can discuss the period in which she lived. Gowdie lived during a time when the Scottish courts were trying many cases of witchcraft. The Scottish witch hunts began around 1550, 100 years prior to her confessions. The Parliament of Mary, Queen of Scots, passed the Scottish Witchcraft Act in 1563, making convictions for witchcraft subject to capital punishment. There were notable events such as the Great Scottish Witch Hunt of 1597, which was a nationwide hunt that began in Aberdeen. Similar to other European witch trials, major Scottish witch hunts occurred in batches. So over the course of these 100 years before Isobel Gowdie's time, there's these batches where there's uprisings of witch hunts that usually occur around times of political unrest or, any kind of unrest in a small town or village that leads to these kind of little mini hunts. Which I like the idea of a mini hunt of witches.
Mini witch hunt. That feels like such a long time, though, because I feel like, and maybe that's just my perspective as an American, because our country is much younger in terms of that, but I think of witch hunts in the colonies in America, and they only lasted for a few years. To think of that being something that was constantly hanging overhead of when is this going to spring up again over the course of a century. That's crazy.
Yes. And so Isobel was arrested during the witch hunt that lasted from 1661 to 1662, the last but noted as the most severe wave of prosecutions. It was estimated that Isobel was one of 7 witches tried in her town of Aldern, and I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly, Aldern, during this witch hunt. So as noted before, records provide no information on Isobel prior to her marriage to her husband, John Gilbert. Isobel and her husband John lived in the area around Loch Loy, which I do know how to say Loch. I do know how to say the word Loch. Loch Loy, 2 miles north of the village Aldern. Her husband was a farm laborer, also known as a cotter, which I guess is another word for a small farmer, hired by one of the tenants of the Laird of Park. Historians characterize Isobel as illiterate and of low social status, but despite being unable to read or write, Isobel possessed a good imagination and had a knack of being able to express herself quite eloquently. Her daily life was spent performing household chores such as milking, making bread, weaving yarn, or weeding. I mean, the ideal set of daily chores.
Honestly, though, if I could just live on a homestead, I would. I think about that a lot. Like, if I could just go off the grid, like, not Ted Kaczynski style go off the grid, but like homesteading style.
Exactly. I think a lot of people are leaning towards the homesteading lifestyle, at least from what I see on Instagram.
I agree. I think a lot of, I don't know, it makes me wonder how much of it is just like we've advanced so much as a society, like with like technology and things, that like we've gotten to a point where we've overwhelmed ourselves or something, and we're like, I think we what's the word I'm looking for? Romanticize kind of like old ways of living because we our generation didn't necessarily get to experience those things.
True. So, going back.
Oh, yes, sorry.
In April of 1662, Isobel came forward on her own volition to make 4 confessions over a period of 6 weeks. It's unclear why she came forward in the first place, but historian John Callow suggests it may be due to her involvement in a conspiracy to torment the local minister Harry Forbes, a zealous extremist who had a fear of witchcraft. Isobel would have been contained in solitary confinement in the toll booth or municipal building located in Aldern throughout the span of her confessions. Again, just so bizarre that she came out. It doesn't seem like it's documented that she had ever participated in witchcraft before this point or was any kind of documented witch prior to this. We also don't know how old she is at the time. I mean, there were accounts that I was reading that she's between 15 and 50 years old. And I was like, that's a very big time span to cover. So we don't really know exactly how old she is. There's a lot of missing details here.
Yeah, that's so interesting because, yeah, most of the stories we talk about, like, there was an accusation leading up to, like, a confession under duress. And so I'm intrigued what's been lost to time.
Yes. And in her first confession on April 13th, 1662, she described an encounter with the devil after she arranged to meet him in the church at Aldern at night. She named several others who attended the meeting, including 2 local women. Isobel claimed she had renounced her baptism and the devil put his mark on her shoulder, then sucked blood from it. She described other meetings taking place, as well as engaging in sexual intercourse with the devil.
Oh.
The coven ate, drank, and were entertained at the house of Queen of Elfame, Queen, also known as Queen of the Fairies, which they reached by flying through the air on magical horses. Forget the brooms. We're taking the horses, baby. Isobel claimed to make clay effigies of the Laird of Park's male children to cause them suffering or death. She also noted that members of the coven were able to transform into animals like cats and hares. And so in the record, it's documented she, to turn into a hare, Gowdie would chant, "I shall go into a hare with sorrow and psyche and meekle care, and I shall go in the devil's name, while I come home again." To change back to human, she would say, "Hare, hare, God sent thee care. I am in a hare's likeness now, but I shall be in a woman's likeness even now."
How did she say it if she was a hare? I'm just imagining like a little bunny talking.
A little,
like have you ever seen like bunny mouths and like how like
this was not explained in the chat. She just was dropping bombs left and right. She's not exactly giving the details as to how this works.
And apparently the court was not into this like critically thinking,
No.
But how'd you say it as a hare?
They weren't asking the detailed follow-up questions that they needed to. But the most notably, and what I thought was important, was she would place brooms beside her husband in bed so he would not notice she was absent. And all I could think was, wow, he must be really checked out to not notice that there are brooms instead of his wife in bed.
I'm imagining her, like, how like when, like, teenagers, I don't know if they actually do this or if this is just in movies, but, like, you see, like, teenagers in movies, like, sneaking out of the house and they, like, stuff, like, pillows under, and they'll, like, put, like, a little something on top to look like their hair or something. I'm just imagining her, like, doing that with a broom, like, just putting a wig on a broom and he just reaches over and, new conditioner.
It's not even soft like a pillow would be. At least it's like at least a pillow is a realistic shape of a human. But no, it's just a broom. He reaches over.
The hair is the straw of the broom.
Exactly. It's like, wow, you really need a good deep condition.
Maybe that's why he was checked out. He was like, wow, Isabel's really let herself go. Her hair feels like straw. She's skinny as a broom. Like, you know? So,
yes.
And the whole time it was just an actual broom. I also love that the broom is being used as a decoy while she flies on horses, when traditionally we think of witches flying on brooms, but instead she's like, I've got a better use for this.
Correct. So 2 weeks later, on May 3rd, 1662, Isabel's second confession was transcribed. She expanded on details about the coven by providing the nicknames of its members and many of the spirits that waited on them, including her own servant spirit called the Reed Reaver, or Red Reaver. I'm not exactly sure if that's spelled. It's spelled R-E-A-D, so it could be red or reed.
Huh.
But because it's Scottish, I don't know.
It could be literally anything else.
Please, any Scottish people who ever listen to this, please let me know. She affirmed claims including the ability to transform into animals and shared the chants necessary to turn into a cat, horse, and various other animals. Over the duration of her confessions, a total of 27 chants were given, both benevolent and malevolent. Isabel testified the devil made handmade elf arrows that were then enhanced by small, roughly spoken elf boys. The devil allocated a number of arrows to each coven member with instructions they were to be fired in his name. No bows were supplied, however, so the arrows were to be flicked by the thumb. These must have been tiny little arrows.
I mean, if they were made by elf boys.
Correct.
They may have been tiny arrows.
The witches were not always accurate when they fired the arrows, but if the intended target, whether it was a man, woman, or animal, was touched by the implement, she claimed they would die even if they were wearing a protective armor. Spells used to inflict illness and torment on Harry Forbes, the minister we described, were also mentioned. On May 15th, 1662, Gowdie was brought before her interrogators for a third time. Like her first and second confessions, and in common with many other Scottish witchcraft testimonies, the transcript begins by detailing her pact with the devil after she encountered him and agreed to meet him at the altar in church. She took these stories that she had mentioned about the elf arrows a step further. She revealed the names of those killed, expressing regret for the deaths she had caused, and supplied names of other coven members with details of who they had murdered too.
Snitch. What a snitch.
What a snitch! How dare she? She betrayed her girlies.
She, especially, like, I don't know, if she wasn't accused and she really just came forward and was like, I'm a witch and I'm gonna start some stuff. I don't know, man. Feels like some kind of, like, breaking of an oath happening there.
For real.
I probably should withhold my judgment on this woman who was, I'm assuming at the end of this, she was probably killed.
Well, we will discuss that, because that is not clear.
Oh.
But let's go on.
Okay, yes, continue, sorry.
Her narrative went on to describe how while I cannot speak. While in the form of a hare, she was chased by a pack of dogs. She escaped from them by running from house to house until eventually she had the opportunity to utter the chant to transform herself back into a human. She added that sometimes the dogs would be able to bite a witch when she took the form of a hare, although the dogs could not kill the shapeshifter. But the bite marks and scars would still be evident once the human form was reinstated. Descriptions of dining with the devil and his beating of coven members and the responses to it were also recounted.
Beating of coven members?
Yes.
Oh.
Salacious details concerning sexual relations with the devil, together with broad characteristics of his genitalia, are chronicled.
Is it...
I mean, she really kissed and told. And kissed and told? I don't know.
Is it bad that I'm intrigued? Like, I kind of want to read it. Like, I kind of want to be like, what does she say the devil's dick looks like?
She said some very bizarre things about the devil's description, both of his physical appearance, his genitalia.
I don't... It's like a morbid curiosity. You know what I mean? Like, I would never want to know in real life, but I want to know what she said.
Exactly. You're like, what did she say? The fourth and final confession, though, on May 27th, 1662, not 1962, is according to the historian Robert Pitcairn, who first reproduced Gowdie's testimonies in 1833. Basically to confirm the three previous testimonies, combined with an attempt to elicit more information about other members of the coven to have charges be brought against them as well. So they also had another woman with the last name Breadhead.
Incredible,
which I am also a little gluten-free breadhead over here. As a result of Gowdie and Breadhead's statements and confessions, 41 people were arrested. 41.
Oh my god. They really snitched.
Oh, she really snitched on them. Breadhead snitched too.
Damn. I don't know.
And as we've seen, though, snitches get stitches. Because a panel of investigators felt there was ample evidence to secure a conviction against Gowdie. They did have a local trial. Basically, together with the confession of her accomplice, Janet Breadhead. At least some or all of Gowdie's confessions were sent to the Privy Council in Edinburgh. According to Wilby, Emma Wilby, who I've said documented a lot of what we believe to be Isobel Gowdie's life, she believes it's likely the confessions were received in Edinburgh around the middle of June 1662, and that the register of the Privy Council contains an entry instructing the Sheriff Principal of Nairn, 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 It sounds like the Australian, Nairn. I'm Nairn.
People in every country who might ever listen to this, I feel like, are gonna hate us at some point.
Correct.
Like, why do these stupid American girls make fun of all of us?
Exactly. They can't say one word correctly. So according to Wilby, there is an entry instructing the Sheriff Principal of Nairn and others to arrange local trials for both women. Just to note also, we're going to rewind a bit. Mm-hmm. In April of 1662, the Privy Council had issued a proclamation prohibiting torture being used as a means of securing confessions from witches, unless it was specifically authorized by the council. We'll just let a little, like, just in case we need it, you know? Just leave it in a little bit. This led to a caution frequently being applied in these kind of cases of witchcraft trials and confessions. In Gowdie's case, the council advised that she should be found guilty only if the confessions had been volunteered without torture, that she was sane, and without a wish to die.
That would be a very creative, like, I hate to say, way to go about things. Like, to be like, I have a wish to die, and so I'm gonna confess to witchcraft. Like, that's... I don't know. That's something. Anyway,
Yes.
sorry. Continue.
Agreed. So Gowdie is found guilty, but there is no record of Miss Isobel being executed. Although it was not unusual, as in 90% of Scottish cases, the outcome is unknown due to local records no longer existing.
Interesting.
But as we said, Emma Wilby hypothesized that once the commission was returned to Aldern, Gowdie would have been found guilty at a local trial in mid-July, transported by cart to Gallow Hill in the outskirts of Nairn, where they would have been strangled and burned.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Two individually terrible things that are even worse when put together. Oh,
exactly. Prior to 1678, most Scottish witches were tried under a Privy Council commission, were convicted and executed. The possibility that she may have been acquitted on the basis of mental impairment has been put forward by some historians. And even one, Mr. Callow, suggests that they may have been freed under the clauses attached to the commission and have maybe been permitted to return to quiet obscurity. But it seems unlikely. The more than likely case is she was executed in some form or fashion, unfortunately.
Oh. Sorry I shit talked you, Isobel.
Miss Isobel is looking down at us like, couldn't have given me some more credit. I gave you vivid accounts of the devil and our inner workings of our coven.
I am so intrigued. Thank you, first of all, for that story. Like, I hope I'm not interrupting you. I don't know if there's more.
No. Okay. That is basically the extent of what we know about Isobel.
I am so intrigued. I wish there was more. I wish we had more information about, like, what prompted her to confess.
Correct. I wish there was more background as well. Like, what was the lead up? What was her life like? But it's noted that most women's lives in history don't start before she's married to her husband. At least what's documented.
That is very true. So. And we're finding that more and more, I think, with these stories that we read. And, like... Oh, what is that? Sorry. Oh, sorry. We're finding that more and more with, like, the stories, I think, that we research and tell on this podcast. You know, we already kind of knew to a degree that was the case. But it seems like a lot of times these people just, like, these women specifically lived in obscurity. Their records start with a marriage license of some kind. And then, like, the only thing that we ever really get to know about them is the way in which they were demonized by men and the government and the church, and it's just very sad.
Yeah. But thank you for listening to the life of Miss Isobel Gowdie.
Thank you for bringing that. I love that story. I'm sad that we don't know more.
So unfortunately, that's going to be the case with a lot of the stories that we're bringing to the table here, is the lack of historical documentation of women. Yeah. A very common theme in this series, yes. Unfortunately.
And on top of that, also, I think that there's sort of an added, like, mysticism that goes along with a lot of these cases of women being accused of witchcraft, where it becomes difficult to see, like, how much is historical fact and how much has become legend and lore. And that's something that we're going to see on our next episode with Mother Shipton.
Let's go.
I'm very excited.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited. We hope you all enjoyed this episode and look forward to the next one.
Yes.
Do we want to remind them of our little expedition to Vero Beach?
We do, because this episode will most definitely be coming out before then. So we are, as a reminder, going to be at the Grimoire Academy's Psychics and Oddities Expo in Vero Beach. I've been informed recently that they have expanded it to 2 days. We will only be there on the 23rd, so if you are going to be there on the 23rd, that is when you will see us, June 23rd, 2024. We will be there under Love Witch Spells and Supplies, and you can see both of our shining faces and the products that we will be bringing there to show off. And if you want to get an idea of some of the products you can see there ahead of time, you can find us at lovewitchspells.com. You can also find our podcast there. We have a whole page on that website dedicated to our podcast. And on social media, TikTok at lovewitchspells13 and Instagram at lovewitchspells.
Yes. So excited to see everyone there, hopefully. And there's a beautiful rebrand that Bridgette has made of her logo and everything like that. So it's very exciting. Just new pages in the book.
Yes. And then we're coming out with some new products, and we're adding something. Of course, our primary focus is still, spellcraft and like supplies for your magic practice, but we are adding some things to the like aesthetic side of our witchy little vibe and witchy store. So keep an eye out for that. We have some goodies coming, and we hope to see you there.
All right, y'all. See you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm That Witch is researched, written, and hosted by Maddy Guerra and Bridgette Golden, edited by Bridgette Golden. You can find more episodes on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you find your podcasts. You can also find us on social media on Instagram at lovewitchspells or TikTok at lovewitchspells13. Make sure to like and subscribe if you liked what you heard today and want to hear more. Thanks for listening.